Hello again, everyone, and welcome to another edition of RF Podlooza, a podcast by and for advertising people. Before we get started, we'd like to ask a little favor. Please follow this channel and like this video. So this week we're speaking with Nick Love from the Kulur Agency. Nick began his career at ESPN and sports marketing and social media marketing, and then went on to several large universities working in social media marketing. Then he moved on to Kulur. Kulur is spelled Kulur and has a very interesting take on our industry. It is energetic, diverse, and it focuses on challenger brands and has a very interesting definition of what constitutes a challenger brand. So let's get into it. Let's meet Nick. So, welcome Nick Love to RF Podlooza. He is from the Kulur Agency, which, as we will find out, is a virtual agency, so they live everywhere. But before we get into that, tell me a little bit about your background. You seem to have a really interesting set of experiences.
Yeah, first and foremost, I'm really appreciative for the opportunity to join you today. And certainly we're shaped by the experiences that we have in life. And
Sure.
Lord knows I've had many of them in my 40 years on this earth. But I think it really first starts off, one, I'm a two-time graduate of the Grambling State University, where I had an opportunity, and a very unique opportunity at that, to join ESPN as a on-air talent and digital within their digital media department fresh out of school. And I'm talking about, 2007, not to date myself, but just turned 40, cough, cough. But had an opportunity to join ESPN's digital media department as social media was really on the boom, as episodic series and online content were really being developed, and really was a part of a very unique team to create exclusive content on ESPN's mobile devices, ESPN.com, ESPN 360, before creating online content became a real thing.
Sure.
And was really able to kind of take that experience and allow it to influence how I approached my next job. So joined Louisiana Tech as the director of basketball operations within their women's basketball department. And this was around the time that NBA Hall of Famer Teresa Weatherspoon had arrived. And I'm not sure how much you may know about La Tech, but one of the winningest women's college basketball programs that had existed. But they had fell on tough times. A lot of people forgot the notoriety that they had in the mid 90s and early
Yeah.
2000s, right? Coach Spoon was really looking to kind of breathe some new energy and wanted to do it in a different way. Certainly, she had the name recognition, but one of the reasons why I was brought in was to really attack the digital space. And so we were creating episodic content series on YouTube. We were doing things on Facebook and Twitter before a lot of people really caught up. And so that was really the first opportunity to really operate with a challenger brand mentality, was
Mm.
really to kind of disrupt that particular landscape. And it started to really influence the recruiting decisions of 3 and 4 star prospects that we were
Yeah.
actually recruiting. From there, I jumped around within the education sector, spent some time overseeing social media and search marketing at the University of Chicago Booth School of Business, which was a paradigm shifting experience.
Sure.
Joined the Ohio State as a Michigan fan. That's a different conversation for a different day. And then, spent some time at NC State overseeing their social media strategy hub, and then joined the agency vertical. And, earlier this year, felt it was time to really, fully invest myself and my talents within the color group. And so here we are today.
Okay. So it's interesting because sports marketing has changed a lot, I think, in the digital age. So, yeah, I mean, you were the beginning of an evolution, if not a revolution, in sports marketing. So tell us about Color. Tell us what's behind the name. It's Kulur. And tell us what its mission is and all those good things.
Yeah, the Color Group, we are a challenger brand agency, right? And we make no bones about it. We are here to disrupt the agency vertical. We are here to elevate awareness and visibility of and recognition of the power of diversity from a leadership construct. It's been around for a little over 4 years. Its initial finding in terms of just the actual name was we wanted to be really clever about certain things, and so we looked at it from a Maltese perspective, and
Okay.
so that's how we arrived at the structural spelling of it. But from an agency leadership perspective, we are made up of all different colors and ethnic groups and backgrounds, and we collectively embrace the idea that ideas are better when they compete, and so collectively when you think about what color brings to life, it brings contrast, it brings excitement, it brings a different positioning of certain things because without color, everything else might be less exciting.
Sure.
So that's certainly what kind of fuels us and how we approach things today.
Now, dealing with challenger brands seems to be at the core of your of Color's persona, for lack of a better term. Tell me about your view on challenger brands.
They're necessary, right?
Sure.
They are necessary to continue to drive innovation, to continue to drive growth, and change. The world that we live on, or that we live in, excuse me, is really powered by challenger brand principles, right?
Sure.
Disruption, authenticity, growth, acceleration. And so when we're looking at, prospective partners, I don't want to classify people as clients, but partners because
Sure.
we're more interested in strategic partnerships. We need to understand what is the appetite to continuously innovate and drive growth. Because one thing that we pride ourselves on is being allergic to the plateau, right?
Sure.
And that doesn't necessarily mean that you can't be the market leader and we don't work with you, right? So
Yeah.
we're challenging the thinking that well, challenger brands are only defined by, as being startups or
Yeah.
not being category leaders, but it's really about a mindset that you're continuing to grow and provide solutions to the world's problems that exist in the core industries that we focus on, but you're doing it with an attitude, you're doing it with a layer of swagger, you're doing it with a level of authenticity and comfort in knowing who you are, to ultimately provide a solution for whose you are. So as we think about who we partner with and why we partner with them, those are some of the things that we're thinking about in terms of that approach.
So to you, every brand is potentially a challenger brand. So let's talk a little bit about virtuality, which is there's a lot of virtual agencies out there today, although some won't admit it. But what are the the positives and negatives of being virtual?
Yeah. So let's start with actually some of the obvious negatives.
Okay.
Certainly, you can hypothesize that not sitting shoulder to shoulder or actually being in a room with people can be a hindrance, right, with regards to collaboration and creativity, right? Certainly, we recognize the different time zones that
Mm,
people may be in, and post COVID, the major focus on work-life balance and it becomes some scheduling challenges, right, when that presents itself. But my hypothesis, excuse me, and I'm going to pivot quickly to the pros of it, right, is when you hire correctly, all of those things go out the window. When you hire correctly, right? And so that's aligning with values, that's aligning with mentality. Um, because when you have a go get it, can do approach, you're going to grind like bad breaks to get things done. Okay. And to do it at a way that is something to be proud of. So when we're hiring people recognizing that, yeah, skills and things of that nature, those things can be developed and they can be trained. But what can't be coached is will, right?
Sure.
What can't be coached is effort, right? And so some of the pros are, being nimble and being agile, right? Being able to kind of quickly, um, if things are aligned, quickly connect, right, through Zoom. Certainly, if we need to have local partners and we have representation there, certainly the trust that's being established within our core set of staff members, having that ability to, it may not necessarily have to be an agency owner going into a particular meeting, right? Because
Sure.
we have talented staff in that particular location. But then last but not least, excuse me, the opportunity to leverage the power of technology to be able to have access to each other, regardless of the respective scenarios or situations that are presenting themselves. So I think being nimble and agile
Sure.
gives us a competitive advantage. And certainly if we need to get into a room, we'll make it happen as well.
Sure. So, as I mentioned, I think a lot of agencies are virtual or partially virtual, but they won't admit it because, I mean, from my perspective, I still see a little bit of client trepidation about working with virtual agencies. Have you sensed that?
A little bit, but I would say in a true challenger fashion, I'm quick to ask why.
Yeah. Good question.
I'm
Good
quick to ask
question.
why, right? Because if it's not impacting our ability to meet the respective objective, then what are you evaluating us on?
You focus on, I think, 4 or 5 verticals. And why don't you tell us a little bit about what verticals you focus on and why?
Absolutely. So, our five core verticals are higher education, technology, nonprofits, financial and professional services, and our wild card is actually the veterinary
Sure.
space. Certainly, as we were trying to zero in on the core industries that we wanted to focus on, there were a few things that led us to these things. One, or these particular selections. One, industry experience. So, have we worked in these particular spaces? The answer is yes.
Sure.
Um, Two, excuse me, what is the available market or the addressable market within these particular spaces for minority-owned agencies with a collective experience that we have that can bring the breadth and depth? We thought that was a potential competitive advantage for us. And then three, can we have fun in these industries?
I'm interested because at RF Palooza, probably about a third of our RFPs are higher education. It seems to be a very competitive market, and you basically not started in it, but it was early in your career. You cut your teeth. So tell us a little bit about how you see the educational market and how it's changing, and some of the challenges and issues.
Yeah, I think like many other markets, excuse me, the emphasis on segmentation, personalization, and customization, right, are really rising to the forefront. When you think about the last 3 years and what this country and country, I'm saying the USA has really been faced with, is really, excuse me, it's really been a large civil rights discussion on um, equity, inclusion, and certainly diversity and
Sure.
belonging. And I think when you look at the higher education space, there are a lot of industries that have been called to the forefront, but certainly education has been under attack in many different states, to begin with. And so when I think about the color group's approach and higher education as a vertical, I do think that there is a necessity for understanding how you engage with various ethnicities, how you market for certain things, because we know that experience is the new brand. And certainly reputation drives relationships, which ultimately influences revenue, right?
Sure.
But all of it started by community.
Yeah.
And so what I think has not happened very effectively, at least within the higher educational landscape, is really how are you segmenting your respective messaging so that it resonates with various audiences who might be facing different challenges or conflicts that ultimately positions not only your academic experience, right, as a pathway for um, a better quality of life, but ultimately deepens affinity, right, for that student or family to join you on a continuum.
Well, well, I guess before the pandemic they existed, but during and after the pandemic, we saw, I think, an explosion of online universities. How has that affected the marketing side of the education?
Yeah, I think it's made it even more competitive, right?
Sure.
Because, certainly, one education, a degree has been under attack for quite some time, right? You hear a lot of people talk about the demographic decline, right, with regards to the value of trades or certificates
Yeah.
vis-a-vis actual degrees, so forth and so on. And so when you think about online education, particularly these e-schools
Yeah.
that, a lot of large institutions are standing up, that's playing into more of the certificate focus vis-a-vis the actual 4-year degree
Mm.
focus, it's really, expanding the playing field. And certainly, um, the internet is a competitive space,
Without a
right?
doubt. Without a
Right.
doubt.
So certainly, one's ability to understand and drive with point of differentiation in an online environment is going to be fundamentally different from how they talk about what the experience is in the physical environment.
Well, they're sort of doing the same thing our industry is doing, going virtual. When you mentioned your key verticals, you mentioned an outlier, veterinary health or veterinary hospitals. Tell us a little bit about that. That's sort of interesting.
Yeah, so we were recently named Agency of Record for Sci-Fair Animal Hospital, which many people may know for their 5 seasons on Animal Planet with a show called The Vet Life, featuring three Black veterinarians, all graduates of Tuskegee University, based out of Houston. And certainly, if you would have asked me 17 years ago, or if you would have said to my mom, well, Nick is going to be helping to market a veterinary space, she would have looked at you like you're crazy. But my how times have changed. It's a unique industry because it's something that um, uh, animal owners or pet owners or family owners, right, certainly have a deep affinity and love
Well, a
towards.
lot of people take their pet to the vet before they'll go to the doctor, so for whatever's ailing them. So,
Exactly.
no, and I've been through it as many people have, so we all know about that. One thing I find interesting about your background is that you got into social media, maybe not at the very beginning, but at close to the beginning of its emergence. Um, Tell us a little bit about how you see social media and how it's changed since the early days.
In my opinion, the areas where it's changed the biggest, particularly for social strategists, is this need to be T-shaped,
Hmm.
right? And what I mean by that is that, social is arguably one of the most undisciplined disciplines that
Okay.
doesn't receive the respect that it deserves. Okay. Most people think, okay, well, if you can write, you can do effective social media. When quite frankly, it's bigger than that. You have to understand channel rationalization. You have to understand community management. You have to understand user experience, advertising, social listening, right? Social governance, so forth and so on. And that's beyond just writing, right? I hope that people are starting to see how intricate it is, right? How much you need to actually know from a depth perspective, because one mistake in today's society, and we've seen it over and over and over again, right, can be incredibly harming to, your brand relationship, which then, I mean, your brand reputation, which then influences relationships and then ultimately, unfortunately, can impact revenue.
Very well stated. I 100% agree. That makes a lot of sense. So we're going to switch directions for a minute here. And, being from RF Palooza, I always ask people about what role RFPs play in their new business acquisition process. So, how does it play in Colors?
Yeah, no, first and foremost, I've really been pleased with what we've seen from RFP Palooza. It's playing an emerging role, quite frankly, with us. Certainly, you have the business development remits that come through relationships, right? And
Yeah,
there are the things that you might see with a hustle mentality if you're looking for things on LinkedIn or Slack channels.
sure.
But then to have a service, right, that can make you aware of what's available in the market creates efficiency for you. We know that the world is a large space, particularly the internet. And so I'm checking RFP Palooza on a daily basis, and I might lead your database in open rates. I'm not sure. That might be my state to claim.
Could
To
be.
see
I could check. um,
see what's available, but certainly, having something delivered to me vis-a-vis me having to go find it creates a lot of efficiencies in how we approach what we're doing.
Look, it's not easy to win an RFP, but you can, and it's cold calling is a lot tougher. I'll tell you that because I've done both, and we've won RFPs in my agency background, and I don't know too many cold calls that resulted in a client. So that's great. Well, this has been great, Nick. It's been a pleasure having you as a guest. You've had some very insightful viewpoints on industries, on issues really affecting our industry. So thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate it.